Well, thank you so much for inviting me into your home. Once upon a time, I used to sit where you're sitting, and I would hear guest speakers come up, and they would say, I feel so honored. Well, now I know what it feels like to feel honored to be here, and thank you again for allowing me to speak into your home. Just a couple things about me before I begin. Pastor was correct in that I was a senior pastor for a number of years. I was also an assistant divisional superintendent where I oversaw a number of churches, and one of my passions is church growth because I love the church. I love the bride of Christ. I acted as a church growth consultant, conference speaker, worship leader, so I've done a few things in the church. In addition to that, I've been teaching art for the past 15 years. I started teaching art at a K through 12 Christian school. I've been primarily teaching for the last 10 years at a, believe it or not, Catholic high school. And it was so cool because I got to preach while I was teaching. It was so cool. And I've also taught adults. I took a group of adults, they were my quote-unquote guinea pigs, and because I had this theory that I would love to be able to get someone inside my head as an artist. And so I took this little group, they were with me for 3 years, and I taught them how to live a creative life, which they're doing to this day. I move in what's called the seer, which is under the umbrella of the prophetic. A seer is someone who sees visions and dreams. And I happen to be an artist, so what I do is I just interpret what I see. So what you're looking at over here is a vision that I actually saw for this church. And then finally, I work as a professional artist. I have a passion for portraiture and figure work. So I love painting people. Any volunteers? So I love painting people. The message that I'm bringing today is, I've entitled it, The Image of God Created to Create. And my hope is that by the end of what I have to share, that you simply become aware. Aware. Awareness is an interesting word because at one point we aren't aware. In the blink of an eye, it's like the heavens open up and we see something and we go, oh my gosh, I never realized. So that's my hope, is that by the end of this morning, you will become aware. I'll be sharing 3 points with you. The first one is the truth of our design. The second is the demonstration of our design. And the third one is finally the awareness of our design. I have a couple questions for you. When was the last time that you thought about the air that you breathe, or perhaps the breath you just took? When you had your meal today, did you pray for the whole meal, or did you pray for individual items in front of you? When you jumped into the car to come here this morning, did you throw the keys in the ignition and drive off, or did you consciously think about putting the key into the ignition and turning it so the car would turn on? What you just experienced was something called awareness. It was something that was in process. You just weren't aware of it until I mentioned it. And that's the direction that I want to take you today. Awareness is becoming conscious of something that is already active. There is something already active inside of you as the image of God. There is something already active inside of you as the image of God that I hope we get to see today. I have a quick story to share with you. Soon after her brother was born, little Sachi began to ask her parents to leave her alone with the new baby. They worried that, like most 4-year-olds, she might feel jealous and want to hit or shake him, so they said no. But she showed no signs of jealousy. She treated the baby with kindness, and her pleas to be left alone with him became more urgent. They decided to allow it. Elated, she went into the baby's room and shut the door, but it opened a crack, enough for her curious parents to peek in and listen. They saw little Sachi walking quietly up to her baby brother, put her face close to his and say quietly, "Baby, tell me what God feels like. I'm starting to forget." So my hope is that this morning, somehow I can help you to remember. So we're going to begin with the truth of our design, and it starts in Genesis 1:26. Genesis 1:26. Then God said, "Let us make man in our image, according to our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth." So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female. He created them. There are 6 truths that I quickly want to run through. Unfortunately, we can't go through each one of them except for one special truth. That I'll share in just a moment. But let me run through those 5 truths real quick. The first truth, Genesis 1:2, you are a spirit because God is spirit. The Spirit of God hovered over the waters. Truth number 2, Genesis 1:3, you communicate because God communicates. In Genesis 1:3, he says, God said, "Let there be light." Truth number 3, John 1:1, you're intelligent because God is intelligent. In the beginning was the Word, or the Logos. The Logos is the Greek word for reason, logic, or truth. And the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Truth number 4, Genesis 1:26 and 2:18, you're relational because God is relational. I'll touch on that in just a moment. Let us make man in our image and our likeness. It is not good for man to be alone. And truth number 5, Genesis 2:16 and 17, you are morally responsible because God is a moral being. And the Lord God commanded the man, you're free to eat from any tree in the garden, but you must not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. For when you eat of it, you will surely die. So let me give you a little working definition of what the image means. In the ancient world, an image was believed to carry the essence of the leader. So in the ancient world, when you saw a statue, they believed that statue was the authority in and of itself that carried the essence of the ruler at that time. The Hebrew word for image is salam, which is a representative in physical form. Today, what that might look like is a police officer. The police officer, in their uniform, in their behavior, they represent the law of the land. As the image of God, we've been given the capacity to serve as God's vice regents. That's a good word, vice regent. It means a person who acts in the place of the ruler, his representatives containing his essence. You are his vice regent, just as you are. You don't have to strive for it. You don't have to study for it. You already wear that garment. So as I was thinking through this, I came up with this question. Is the image of God only reflected in the Spirit? Is the image of God only reflected in the Spirit? So if we learn how to worship, if we learn how to pray, if we learn how to evangelize, if we learn how to tithe, if we learn how to get our theology right, does that mean that I have attained the status of image of God? If this is true, then why doesn't God just take us out as soon as we come into the kingdom? As soon as we say, yes, Lord, how come he doesn't take us up to heaven? I think there's more to it. I think there's more to this image of God than just the Spirit. Jesus said in John 10:10, I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. So what is the full? What is the full image of God? I believe it can be summarized by 2 words, identity and destiny. Identity and destiny. There are 3 questions that every single person on the face of the earth, doesn't matter where you're at, whether you're here in Los Angeles or in the Amazonian jungle, there are 3 questions that are common to every human being on the face of the earth. Who am I? Why am I here? And where am I going? At some point in your life, you will wrestle with those questions. Who am I? Why am I here? And where am I going? And each one of those has to do with identity and destiny. Let me remind you of who you are in the kingdom. You are saved by grace through faith. You are sealed, set free. You are born again, born of the Spirit, transformed out of this earth and never going to be the same. It doesn't stop there. You're a temple of God, a part of the royal priesthood. You're holy and dearly loved, redeemed, reconciled, righteous in his sight. You are a son or a daughter of the Most High King. You are seated with Christ in the heavens, sanctified, God's righteousness. You are the apple of his eye. That's who you really are. So now we've got that cleared up. Unfortunately, that doesn't explain the where am I going. It doesn't explain the why am I here? What's my purpose? How do I make my life count? In order to make your life count, it has to come from in here to out here. It's called action, demonstration. Jesus just didn't teach. He demonstrated. So now we understand that the first point, we've looked at the truth of our design. Now let's look at the demonstration of our design. In James 2:14-26, it says this: "What good is it, dear brothers and sisters, if you say that you have faith," or theology, "but don't show it in your actions? Can that kind of faith save anyone? Suppose you see a brother or sister who has no food or clothing, and you say, 'Bye, have a good day, stay warm and eat well,' but then you don't give that person any food or clothing. What good does that do?" So you see, faith by itself isn't enough. Unless it produces good deeds, it is dead and useless. Why did Jesus change water into wine at a wedding? Why did he tell stories to drug dealers, alcoholics, and prostitutes at a party? Why did Jesus feed over 10,000 people with bread and fish? Because in each one of those situations, he was demonstrating why he was there. He was demonstrating. You see, the issue is that we've been called to more than Bible study, tithing, prayer, more than that. Those are the tools that equip us to go out. We've been called to radically change a society. The Great Commission was meant to send out, not to stay in. Through revelation, demonstration, and impartation. Revelation, receiving the understanding. Demonstration, go do. Imparting, giving it away. But it doesn't stop there. You see, all of that is based on your design. Each one of us has been specifically designed. We call them gifts and talents. Let me give you a quick little example. Peter grew up in a fishing village. He had a mentor who taught him how to fish. He was designed to fish. He was really good at it. One day Jesus shows up, recognizes how Peter was designed, and said, "Peter, I can use you just as you are. Since you know how to fish, let's take those principles and apply them to people. I'm going to teach you how to fish for men." It doesn't stop there. The Bible's filled with personalities like this. Let's take a look at Paul. Prior to Paul's Damascus Road experience, he was trained, he was designed to be a theologian. He was trained to be a teacher. Shortly after his Damascus Road experience, as he entered into the kingdom, Jesus basically said, "Paul, I designed you to write. I can use that." Paul ended up writing 2/3 of the New Testament. You see what I mean? Each one of us, and I can take you through many, many characters in the scriptures. Each one of us has been designed for a specific purpose. How many Bible stories have you heard? How many scriptures have you memorized? How many potlucks have you attended? How many conferences have you gone to that changed the world, that changed culture? You see what I mean? It's just not all in here. It has to get out. It has to get out by design. What are your gifts and talents? The image of God is reflected through more than just worship, tithing, Bible study. The image of God is reflected through transformation of a culture, through demonstration, by design. By design. Which leads me to my sixth truth. Genesis 1:1, you are creative because God is creative. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. If you were to take a look in your Bibles and open up to the first page in the Bible, what you'll discover is the first 26 verses of the Bible talk about creativity.
Yeah, that's good.
God could have started anywhere. He happened to start with creativity. And then in verse 26, he says, I'm going to duplicate that. And I'm going to allow my creation to be a part of what I'm creating.
Yeah, that's good.
I have a question. When did it stop? When did he say, oh, I'm going to take that one back? He never did. He never did. I know what's going on inside of some of your minds, but I'm not creative. I don't know how to draw. I'm going to answer that in just a minute. But let me suggest this. Are we or are we not a part of creation? Are we separate from creation or a part of creation? If we're a part of creation, please understand that a part of creative design is expressive. Just think about it. Everything that you see in what we call creation out there, every single part of it expresses itself. Why do the flowers bloom with a sweet-smelling scent? Why do the trees burst with greenery and fruit every season? Why does the sunset splash fiery color in the sky, praising God every evening? And yet we say, I'm not creative. Because the difference is creation out there isn't broken. We are. We are. Because we bought into the lie. We bought into the lie that we aren't creative. When God breathed life into Adam, he didn't do it just to give Adam life. When God breathed life into Adam, he breathed life into Adam because of his design. You can continue reading if you'd like to, because Adam was given a task shortly after he came to life. Some of those opportunities, some of those characteristics of his design were to be in God's presence. How come he didn't do that with the animals? How come he didn't do that with trees, with the rocks? Only Adam, only humanity was invited into God's presence. And if you continue to read, what you discover is that Adam got to hang out with God. He got to go for a walk with God in the garden every single day. Think about it. Put yourself in Adam's shoes. What would it be like to walk hand in hand with your Creator? Adam got to do it. It doesn't stop there. Adam was designed to have two-way communication. How many of us sit before the Lord crying out for a need that we have, or praying on behalf of someone else, and then walking away from that prayer environment wondering why God never said anything? Because we weren't quiet enough to listen. We were designed to have two-way communication. God speaks to you every single day. I can guarantee it. He speaks to you every single day. He speaks in a number of different ways. But he always speaks from the language of heaven. I love this next part. Shortly after Adam stood on his 2 feet, God said, Adam, come here. Come here. I want to share something with you. Check this out. I've been doing this for quite a while. Created the heavens and the earth, the stars, the trees. I even created the animals just for you. But how would you like to finish it for me?
That's good.
Oh. Whoa. You mean I get to finish something that God started? Church, he's still doing that. He's still doing that. And he's asking you to go out and heal the sick, to pray for the dead, to cleanse the leper. He's still doing it. And then I was struck with this thought. How did Adam know how to name all the animals? Because there's nothing in Scripture that says, and God taught him. How did he know how to do that? Because of his design. Adam was designed to do that. The same ability that gave Adam, the same breath of God that gave Adam the ability to do that is the same breath of God that's breathing through you right now. Remember, it hasn't stopped. There is no giant period at the end of any of the text in Scripture that says, okay, I'm done now. It still continues. So we've taken a look at the truth of our design, the demonstration of our design. Now I want to finish by the awareness of our design. I want to go back to one of those questions or concerns that we have. But I'm not creative. I can't draw. As an art teacher, when I first started to teach, every student that came through with different expectations. Every now and then I would have a student come through, in the same group, who said, I can't draw. I'm not creative. And when I first started to teach, I thought, okay, ha ha ha, come on, let's go. I'll show you how to do this. But what I recognized is that year after year, every class of students that came through, at least one, typically more than one, would walk through my door saying, I can't draw, I'm not creative. I thought, well, okay, something's going on here. What is it? So I decided to do a little experiment. I would station myself at the door of my classroom and would watch the students come through. And what I was waiting for was not simply to shake their hand and welcome them to class, but I was waiting for that one student to say, I can't draw, I'm not creative. And sure enough, it happened every single time. But what was going on was the students would come to school the first day of class, and they're all happy and laughing and stuff, and then all of a sudden they walked through my classroom door, and it was like dead man walking, and they were heading off to solitary confinement. It looked like this. Hey, how's it going? Yeah, I haven't seen you. I'll take you out of lunch. I can't draw, Mr. Saunders. What did I do? I can't draw, Mr. Saunders. It sounds comical, but oh my gosh, I felt brokenhearted for these kids. And then I would have conversations with the parents, and I would hear something similar from the parents. So, you're an art teacher. Oh, I can't draw a straight line. I did a little investigation. Well, it was actually a very long study. What I discovered is that they had bought into a lie. We have bought into a lie. The lie led to an assumption. The assumption created the fear. The fear ended with disqualification. I can't draw. But wait a minute. God told us that we're creative. That we're a part of creation, and that we're the only ones who create. Animals don't create. They don't paint murals on walls. Human beings are the only ones. Let me take you back to school for just a minute, and I'll show you why we believe the lie. In grade school, we learn our ABCs, our 1, 2, 3s. We learn how to write. We learn how to add, subtract, multiply, divide. And we get to play with art. My favorite was the paste. Remember the paste? Not because I used it out here, because, oh, it was so good. And that's the only place I could get paste was at school. And you play with clay. Clay didn't taste so well. I play with clay and paint and paste and cut and paste and really cool stuff that you took home and your mom put on the refrigerator. And then you graduate from elementary school and you move into junior high. And the algebra, the sentences turn into paragraphs, and paragraphs turn into essays, and the math turns into algebra. And the algebra turns into science and a little bit of chemistry, but the art stops. We continue to work on these disciplines and graduate from junior high into high school. There in high school, the algebra turns into geometry, working with quadratic equations and calculus. English and the essays that we're writing now become research papers. We're being prepared for college. And science that has become chemistry is now biology, but there is no art. Until possibly the junior or senior level. It's not until the juniors or seniors get to come to art where they bump into that fear that turns into disqualification. Every single one of us in this room have experienced that. We learn how to be afraid through our educational system. Betty Edwards, a former professor of art at Cal State Long Beach, she's the one that wrote Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain. Some of you may have heard of it. She says this: when older students and adults who have not drawn since elementary school are asked to draw something, they will typically draw like a child. The reason why a drawing looks like a child drew it is because they are drawing at the same level as when they stopped, when they were younger.
That's good. Wow.
Education has trained creativity out of us. Why? Because they've taught us how to have the right answer. They've taught us how to have the right answer. What happens when you pick up a pencil and you're not really sure what to do with it to make a mark? You're not going to have the right answer. You're afraid of criticism. You're afraid of your peers. You're afraid the teacher's going to point you out. There's no room for experimentation. There's no room for creativity. There's no room for trial and error. There's no room for creative play. There's no room for risk, because we're taught in our educational system how to have not just the right answer, but the right answer the first time. And then those same students go into an art room, and they're terrified. And the only way that they can express it is by saying, I can't draw. And underneath their breath, they're hoping that they won't be judged, and they won't be criticized. You know the sad part about that? Is if nothing's done at the high school level, we take that into adulthood. That's why we say, I can't draw, I'm not creative. But it doesn't fit. What's wrong with that picture? God says that we're creative. God said that He, as the Creator, He created us to create, and yet we're terrified. It doesn't stop there. We have the whole I'm not creative issue to deal with. If I say artist, what's the first thing that pops in your head? Probably paintbrush, probably dance move, piano, cello. Those are tools. Those are tools. Creative expression comes from in here. The paintbrush isn't the creative. You are the creative. And unfortunately, we bought into this lie that we're not. It's a lie. It's a lie. Let me take you back to grade school real quick one more time, because I'm going to prove that you are creative, that you do express yourselves, right where you sit. In grade school, we learn how to write. And remember the block letters over top of the blackboard, whiteboard, whatever we were using? Remember the big block letters? And the hours of laboriously trying to get the A right and the B with the big, pad of paper. And then you learn something really cool called cursive writing. You mean I get to bend letters? Whoa. I remember the first day I learned how to do that. I ran home, I walked through the door, I said, Mom, look, I'm bending letters. Isn't that cool? Can you do that? And then we move from grade school into junior high, and we're still kind of playing with our signature a little bit. And then we move into high school, and ladies, come on, when you had a boyfriend, you tacked on his last name onto yours, and you just dreamed about, oh, we're going to get married someday. And then you graduate from high school, and then you still kind of play with your signature a little bit, and eventually you don't think about it anymore. You probably signed your name yesterday. You signed your name today, and you didn't think about it. When you begin to sign your name and without thinking about it, it's called subconscious. When you begin to perform a task at the subconscious level, guess what happens? It meets with your personality, and the two merge. What you just did this morning is you expressed yourself. I can bring a handwriting analyst in here, and they can tell me exactly what your personality is like because you expressed yourself through your signature. You've been doing it ever since you learned how to use cursive writing. You'll do it today, you do it tomorrow, you do it the day after that. It doesn't stop here. You're expressing yourselves by the kind of clothing that you choose to wear, by the hairstyle that you use. Ladies, you're expressing yourself by the color of makeup that you choose to wear. We express ourselves by the kind of car that we drive, the home that we live in. We express ourselves every holiday. Last Christmas, Thanksgiving, who taught you how to decorate the Christmas tree? Last Thanksgiving, who taught you how to place the items on the table just right? Where'd that come from? I think I know. The same breath of God that breathed life into Adam is the same breath of God that's breathing through you, because you are the image of God created to create. There is no difference from creative expression out there and the creative expression I'm seeing right here in front of me. There's no difference. The sad part is we bought into a lie. The truth is, you are the image of God. Look around. Look around. See who's blooming. See who's expressing themselves. You are the image of God, created to create. The whole drawing part, the whole painting part, that's a learned skill. It's no different than learning how to type. But no one ever talks about that. The image of God, you, is the full expressive power of God's creative force here on earth. You don't have to do this. You get to do this. You get to do this. What would happen if we took what you are presently using, your creative expression, what would happen if we took you right where you're at and we groomed it, we fed it, we nurtured it, we healed the wounds in the heart, especially those people that, I call them the wish I wouldas and the wish I couldas. I wish I would have stayed with dance. I wish I would have stayed with the piano. I could have been a pianist. I could have been. What would happen if we dealt with that lie, stripped it away, and nurtured who you really were? The church would explode with creativity. The church would explode with creativity, and the culture around us would pay attention. They would see something stirring over there. So instead of having to look to Hollywood and a lot of the darkness that's coming out of there, they would see the light of creativity, the original design of creativity in the church. And it all comes through you. As I shared, I've spent the last 15 years, I grew up in an artist's home. So to me, art is just, it's something that I do all the time. But for the last 15 years, I've been intentionally teaching it. And when I began to recognize a huge need in the church to heal the wounded artist, and when I use the term artist, I mean people in general. If we ever disqualify ourselves, if we ever find ourselves saying, I can't draw, I'm not creative, you're the person I want to talk to. And that's pretty much all of us. Because we were all created to create at some level. It's not an issue of all or nothing. And that's where we typically go. It's all or nothing. Some people have it, some people don't. No, that's another lie. It's an issue of more or less. Just like working with numbers. Some people are better at numbers than others. So I developed what I call the Rua Academy of Art. Rua means spirit. And what I've done is I've taken the years of art training and I've broken it up into 4-week units so that especially working adults, they could take the class and they wouldn't be burdened, but they actually could develop their skill. And I've combined that with what I call a workshop, where all we do is talk about the spirit, so that you can merge what you're learning in the classroom as an artist with the move of God and the Holy Spirit. So when you start to feel those prompts, when you start to experience the presence of God, you'll know how to interpret it. And then you can go show someone out in the world, that's what God looks like. You were created to create. That's the truth. Pastor?
Help us spread the message. Click on the donate button below or go to shermanoakspc.org/donate. Thank you.